Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and I like to get into the hard sciences. Jonathan Rothschild, who I've known for 34 years now. I started off, wanting to go into quantum physics at MIT, and I decided to go into honors biochemistry. And I was the kind of kid that would pull apart my father's reel-to-reel tape recorder and a 17-joule Swiss watch movement and put it back together again at 4 years of age. So I want to know what makes things happen. I'm the kid that would pull the legs off the frog to see why it jumped. And I want to know why mitochondria work and why light therapy works and what is the force of life. For example, our limited spectrum of vision for most humans basically is the color visual field. Those people who are a little bit more wider field can see into the infrared, at least partly, and those people become acupuncturists because actually every neurodermal complex called the Langerhans complex in your skin emits infrared light. In fact, you can do a Kirlian photography. You'll see photographs where you see electrical discharges at those points. If you spray it with magnet charge, you can actually feel a tinkle at those points. But you actually do a digital thermal image, you can actually see little dots where there's increased amounts of light right at those points. Well, the body transmits along myelinated nerve fibers and along collagen light. In fact, I just decided just to we're on break, Ron, to talk about lumen photon, to pull up the latest research on infrared light therapy. And I went to Google Scholar and I thought, I'll just pull it up and see what they have. And this is interesting. I'll just read off a few of the titles so you get an idea just how advanced the science is in this. Mitochondrial signal transduction and accelerated wound and retinal healing, that's your eye, retinal healing by near-infrared light therapy. Whoa, that's pretty darn good. Photobiomodulation by light in the red or near-infrared spectrum, 630 to 1,000 nanometers, using low-energy lasers or light-emitting diodes. Arrays has been shown to accelerate wound healing, improve recovery of ischemic tissue in the heart, and attenuate degeneration of the retina. And then the next one is transcranial near-infrared light therapy improves motor function following embolic strokes in rabbits. So they actually create a stroke and show actually how to recover the brain. So that's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Next one, near-infrared light-induced photodynamic therapy of cancer based on upconversion nanoparticles. So in other words, if you got a cancer, slap a lumen photon pad over the cancer primary and secondaries. It'll improve whatever therapy you're having, even if you're doing what I call stupid conventional chemotherapy or radiation, or you're doing advanced gene-based therapy like Dr. Brzezinski and taking our full nutraceutical program, or you're going to a Mexico clinic and getting B17, which is toxic to cancer cells. You're taking super high doses of ellagic acid, myco-D2, and malignoblock, etc. It's going to make the cancer cells say, oh, I'm out of here, and they die. Next one, improvement.
It begins to alkalize that area, and
exactly.
They don't do well there.
I'm going to cut and paste. I'm going to cut and paste these articles over so people can see. So they say, "Well, I'm not just making this up." Next, improvement in pain and disability in elderly patients with degenerative arthritis of the knee treated with narrowband light therapy. Now, while I'm saying this, I want people to understand there are some other people that are non-qualified. They're not scientists or functional medicine docs, like I've been for more than a third of a century now, that are saying that you can make a little machine, and I'm not going to even say the name of the machine, that has blue light or red light at a specific nano, frequency that won't penetrate more than just the skin surface, that isn't a pulsatile frequency of pulsations at the carrier frequency of the light in the body. Now, those machines basically do nothing. You need to have, number one, enough penetration that it'll go through 12 inches of tissue, and you need to have it in the infrared. Ultraviolet light or blue light has no biological action. It's basically, if you look at all the biological molecules in the body, they're going to be at the far and near infrared spectra, which is why, if you're a chemist, like I was, you actually do what's called infrared spectroscopy of molecules. And you can actually look at the spectral pattern and say, that's an imidazole side group, that's a phenolic side group, that's such and such a ring program, that's an aliphatic compound, that's an aromatic compound. You can actually tell from the infrared spectra. Well, the cells do that too. That intuitive knowledge we call the quantum computing of cells is all light mediated. It's light. It's far and near infrared light. It's not blue light. It's not red light. It is infrared light. That's why, for example, when an animal who can see the infrared, because animals, by the way, may not even have color vision, but they can see infrared. Bugs, believe it or not, when they look at a tomato, and the tomato has scorpion genes, they don't see a normal tomato. They see a tomato that has weird infrared patterns on it. If you do an infrared photograph of a tomato that's got scorpion genes, called these new GMO tomatoes, and they don't look normal. So the bug looks at it. They probably can smell pheromones or other chemicals off it too, but it can actually look at it and say, or an animal looks at it, that's not food. You know, it may look like food to us in the color spectrum, a red light, you know, visual spectrum, but it's not food. Okay? So if somebody else is flogging these other machines, realize Dr. Deagle's going to search around and find the best machine to help you. And one of the first ones I tell people to get is the Lumen. Second, of course, is Soma Pulse. I like the portable machines. We can get bigger ones. In fact, I'm looking at a machine from China that's a real powerful pulse magnetic field machine, a bioenergizer. And we you know, these are considerably more expensive, but they're powerful. But I like the portable machines. And one of my first machines, I have it actually at my desk, is my Lumen. I love this Lumen. It's so compact. I can put it in my car. I can plug it into a little conversion thing, put it in a battery pack. You can take this darn thing anywhere. You don't even need to buy new pads. You can put it right through a gel pack. If you've injured something and it's sore, you can put it right over that area with a gel pack against your skin, or have a terry cloth, hand towel or face towel, and it'll go right through it. It's not a heating pad. It's a light pad. And again, there's no other company makes LEDs that'll penetrate through 12 inches of bone, muscle, brain, whatever. So if you're getting a migraine, if you get retinal problems, if you've got coronary artery disease and you're trying to stimulate your arteries to heal and reduce your calcium score, if you're trying to clear and you're fighting cancer, you're trying to fight chronic pelvic pain or colitis of any kind, this is not the cure, but it's one of the major interventions that's going to help you get into a state of compensation to help get you in remission. So that's just a little bit of the literature. It just tells you the nuts and bolts of low laser therapy. And I've got lots of articles going right back here to 2012 to 1999. This is pretty neat stuff. And it tells me that most people really don't realize just how powerful infrared light therapy is. So, Ron, any comments about that?
Well, the study that has not been published yet, that was done at Washington University Med School, this was a study that went on it was done by the faculty at Washington University Med School. We didn't even know they were doing the study. We didn't know anything about it. It was a 3-year study with our equipment with 3,500 patients over a 3-year period, and they used it to function as acupuncture in this case. It works directly on the tissue, but it can also function as acupuncture. They were putting it on the lumbar spine area where the adrenals and kidneys are. Those points right there, they were able to activate there well enough that over the 3-year period they reduced their C-reactive protein, or their inflammation throughout the body, by 89% at the end of that cycle. This was 3,500 patients that did this for.
How long did it take them to get the C-reactive down, though? Did it happen in 2 weeks, 2 months?
Well, they could get it down, but it was when they did it, it was incremental processes going down. Started going down, but to get down to the deepest point, it took they stayed in for the full 3-year period. That's where they got the 89% reduction. So it was, but gradually over the entire time, it was, and the faculty were all these medical students and doctors, and they started bringing in people with everything from ALS, MS, Parkinson's, stroke victims, polio people, and the only one that they didn't get good result was the ALS. They said that was just but strokes, they found out if they used it on the affected side of the brain, that helped them tremendously.
That's interesting. Everything. So again, if you want more information about Lumen Photon, how do they contact you, Ron? Your number is?
828-863-4834. We're Western North Carolina, Lumen Photon Therapy. Thank you.
Yeah, and do contact Ron, or contact me if you want more information, but it'll help your condition. And it's amazing. Yeah. Very cost effective. Simple to use. Yep. Okay, Ron, we'll see you again on Friday. And do you want to book now for next week?
Okay.
Let me give you a time here. Okay, can we cut the commercial there? Welcome back, and we are joined with Emil de Toffel. It's a regular series. If you go to Hour 2 on Tuesdays, And by the way, I'm going to start doing a kind of like putting a labeled archive, so you can find the full Genesis program over on our servers too, so you can find these particular shows or topics by searching for them. Emil, when I tell people, I just want to summarize what we start with, because we have 2 segments today. The first thing is you want to get simply a radiation detector that's going to measure the frequency of high frequencies, like the device from Germany that measures your radiation. What's that device again called?
Gigahertz Solutions.
Now, the Gigahertz Solutions device is pretty important. People understand it has a little antenna. It's directional, so you can point at your neighbor's house, which might be 300 yards away. And if their house and their home is radiating off smart meter radiation, you're going to pick it up. Most of these are producing quite a bit of radiation at pretty high frequency levels, and the frequencies are what I call the toxic frequencies for cells and tissues. And it's not a thermal effect, it's a non-thermal effect. And this is one of the things that I'm going to be putting in my lawsuit to people who are listening to. How is Deagle doing this? I mean, a lot of people are wanting to jump on my lawsuit when they can't. What they do is listen to the show and listen to the announcements or articles I write, which I'm going to post over on both my show, Nutrimedical, Clay and Iron, the other website. I'm going to be posting it up on Rents and also on GCN Live, which is more very important to put it up on GCN Live so people can see the articles on this. The first step is to get a Gigahertz Solutions. Second step is to get a Stetzer test. You plug literally into the wall and tells you what dirty electricity is coming through your walls and your wiring. That might be from adjacent homes, the power lines, or your own things in your home, like, step-down transformers for your laptop, or, all kinds of other things. When you point your Gigahertz Solutions, for example, at your microwave, you realize when that sucker's on, it's blasting radiation right across the room. There's no such thing as radiation protection from a microwave. And if you put the audio on your Gigahertz Solution, it's going to scream when you turn on your microwave. It's going to say, it's like your cells screaming as they get radiated. Then, of course, you have the next device we talked about briefly, measures the actual frequencies of electrical and magnetic fields, and you can actually put, in a sense, an oscilloscope on your laptop, so you can go around your home and find dimmer switches, bad power, electrical wiring, dirty electricity coming in from various channels. It can even, by the way, even come through your pipes, because I remember talking to Dr. Sam Millam, and he said he did a test a few years ago. We had him on last year. He talked about a test a few years ago where we went to a woman's home where she was like miles from, quote, regular town, but she was having signs of dirty electricity symptoms. And so when he took his oscilloscope, he actually found that she had magnetite in the ground and an aquifer of water that connected her to a rail line that brought the dirty electricity in through the rail lines, through the magnetite and the groundwater into her home through her pipes. That's what his conclusion was. And so he had to be a real detective. I mean, he really is a pretty amazing guy. And I'm sure he spent time, too, with Dave Stetzer. Stetzer, of course, went over to Russia and did research with the Russians. The American military and DARPA, they're completely and fully aware of this. In fact, they deployed frequency-type weapon systems for disabling and confusing the enemy. One of them is called a popper. Literally, that's the term they call it. Deployed out of Bethesda, Maryland, the research facility there. And when they put it in Gulf War II, around Fallujah and Najaf in northern Iraq, they disoriented people so badly that they would literally walk right into the line of fire. And they had, at the beginning of Gulf War II, 6 Swords, which is an operational ground-based robot. These are not airborne, drones. And at the end of the war, they had over 26,000. Now, people don't know that. These are stuck in warehouses waiting to be deployed someday, somewhere, in a field of battle, or who knows, on the American streets, just like the Captain America movie that actually showed these deployed operational sword robots deployed in the streets of Tehran, right? So I want people to understand that electropollution is no minor thing. And when we talk about radiation every day, like Fukushima Daiichi, and where, by the way, if they go to our website, they can see the direct link to our Vista cesium-137 gamma detector. And that's literally posting every day. I can look right over into my other laptop roll-top desk with a dedicated computer, a Mac Mini, right on a dedicated line with a dedicated power source. And that's showing 34 counts a minute now. It's all stable. We're not getting these big surges. But what's happening is, this is really very important people understand this, that the radiation on the side of your house is like having a mini Fukushima reactor. The radiation coming through your power lines, through various appliances, maybe even your LCD computer screen on your big TV, walking around your apartment when you got your microwave on, cooking breakfast. This is not a minor thing. When you have a cell phone on, for example, on the side of your head, you're breaking down the blood-brain barrier, activating enzymes in your brain. You're doing things that are not good. So, Emil, let's go over some of this equipment. And, of course, I just recently was just going back over the whole catalog for less EMF. And, I mean, this is good stuff. I mean, you've got blocking materials, clothing. You've got everything there in that catalog. If people want to get a copy of the catalog, they can contact you and find out exactly what's available. And what's that number again, 800 number, if they want to contact less EMF?
It's 888-LESS-EMF. Not 800, but 888-LESS-EMF.
So let's go through some of that summary again. And these are non-thermal effects, and we're constantly being assaulted. I call it 315 million guinea pigs. Years ago, there was a book out on drug testing and so on, written about 25 years ago. It was called, I think they call it 200 million guinea pigs, probably 30 years ago, that when the population was just 200 million plus. But they wanted to round it out. People are abused as guinea pigs in the Western world. And, of course, it's in Europe where they've been doing some testing. And they're not quite as they don't have total control of the research facilities and the scientific elite. The Europeans are freaking out. I mean, they're blocking the ability to put Wi-Fi networks in schools or private schools so the kids actually can learn. They're blocking the putting of cell towers in different places, say in Switzerland, because they know that it affects people and animals. They're starting to realize that dirty electricity doesn't make bees confused so they can't find their way back to the nest. It confuses people's brains, increases astroglial stress to the brain cells, and it does really bad stuff, including causing cancer of all kinds. So, Emil, let's go through some of the equipment that you sent me over the last few years, the materials you've sent me. I even set up a blocking radiation wall to send the smart meter radiation back to my next-door neighbor who's since left and went up to Connecticut. And when I told my next-door neighbor, Curtin, he said, "You're kidding." I said, "Yeah, you want to get rid of the smart meter." And they're always freaked out by getting rid of the smart meter. "Oh, I don't want to tell the utility." I said, "Yeah, all you do to tell the utility is, I'm willing to pay the fee which you're demanding for me, $10, $12 a month, to read my meter. I want an analog meter." And they can quote the federal law, which, by the way, says it's an opt-in. It's not an opt-out thing. The government doesn't have the right, or utility commissions in any state, to make you have a smart meter. At 12,000, there were 12 smart meters went on fire in Saskatchewan over the last few months. And the Saskatchewan government in Canada ordered 125,000 or 105,000 smart meters take off businesses and homes across the province because they're a fire hazard. That's only one of the many dangers of these darn things. So when we come back, we're going to hear from Emil, and we'll go through all the equipment and what you need, protective materials, and doing your own, detective work. Back in a moment. Welcome back, and I'm going to post this article over from Sask Power ordered to remove all 105,000 smart meters in the province, and that article is mind-boggling. I mean, when my suit's filed against and this is a federal suit, this is not a state suit, it's a federal suit against California Public Utilities and San Diego Gas and Electric. By the way, I'll continue paying my power bill, including the extra charges to read my meter, which is like $10 or $12 or $20 a month. But it is a form of a RICO violation. It wouldn't matter if it was 5 cents a month. They're trying to extract from me money. They don't have a right. It's called unjust enrichment. They're exposing me with smart meters, not just on my home, because it's not on my home anymore. I told them if they try to put one in the home, they're going to be with armed resistance. And I'm not kidding when I say that. People, "Oh, you can't say that, Dr. Deagle. That's a threat." When I got called by the lawyer, he said, "That's a threat. Don't threaten our people." I said, "This is not a threat. This is a guarantee." And I said, "If you bother me anymore, I'm going to sue you and take your car and home too, Mr. Attorney." So you need to have attitude, okay? They don't bother the big bad wolf. They bother Bambi. And you have to be systematic about it. Pay all your bills. Make sure you have alternative power in case they are stupid enough to cut off your power. But have attitude. When this happens in Saskatchewan, they don't have the totalitarian regime they do have in America or in other countries like Australia and New Zealand, so they get away with murder, or in Europe, where Dr. Ole Johansson, where they started doing the research on this, They're since trying to see if they can remove Dr. Oley from the university, there from the Karolinska Institute, because they don't like his findings, even though they're the first in the world to realize electrotoxicity was bad. And he's got 45 years of research, so this is pretty damn horrendous, especially when you're told your utility cut off, your washer and dryer at 12 midnight, you have to do your washing because it's non-peak power. And it's toxic for you and your children. So let's go through the equipment. And so this is not, people say, why do I rail on this? I say, well, would you like a little Fukushima on the side of your house? Well, that's what you have when you've got a smart meter or a cell phone clammed to the side of your head like you're some kind of cyborg. It's not a minor thing. And so let's go through this, Emil.
I'd be happy to. You know, people often will ask us, okay, so I know I have a problem. I have a smart meter. Just tell me what I need to do about it. Why do I need a device, a gadget, to measure the strength of the radiation? And the answer is simple. You can't see it or hear it or feel it. If you can't measure it, you're working blind. You don't know if your smart meter is radiating, if your smart meter is radiating in your direction. You don't know if your wall is providing you some degree of shielding. You don't know if it's reflecting off your neighbor's house. You don't know if you have sources of radiation in your house that are worse for you than the smart meter. So, you know, you can take some action, but when you're working blind, you don't know if you're taking the right action, and you don't know if the action you've taken is working.
Right.
So if you insist on working blind, we can help you do that, but it's a total guess as to whether or not you're achieving what you hope to.
Now, by the way, you sent me some links recently about National Library of Medicine research articles that actually show genetic and biochemical markers that show signs of electropollution and predisposition to increased toxicity, although everyone's exposed and everyone's toxic. Individuals with these particular gene SNPs or polymorphisms and gene markers are particularly in a high hazardous, dangerous range. So I'm going to post those articles up too. People should understand this is not theoretical, and as they see me get a little emotional over it, it's like I'm screaming, even among environmental doctors, and I'm trying to convince them. And again, there's a few experts like Dr. William Ray, some of the other experts in our Academy of Environmental Medicine, but by and large, most people are just yawn asleep, and they think, well, I can't smell it or taste it, so it's not killing me. No, it's killing you softly, like that song years ago. So what other equipment do they need? They need the Stetzer to test the gigahertz solutions. They need the oscilloscope that measures, what's the actual name of the equipment that measures the frequency of electricity, electrical fields, and magnetic fields, and then can convert it to a little device that allows you to put it on your laptop so you can actually see the frequency and electropollution.
Right. Here you're using a combination of two pieces of equipment. One is called a professional combination meter. It's also made by Gigahertz Solutions, the same folks who make the high-frequency meter for measuring the wireless signal. Here we're talking about measuring low-frequency signals, the electric and the magnetic fields that you're getting from your wiring, from your power lines, from all your appliances, from anything that's running on electricity. So you take that meter, and you take the output from that meter, and you put it through an oscilloscope, which connects to your computer.
Right.
There you can visualize. You can see the actual frequency information, the strength of the signal. You can see all the different frequencies that are present. You can record it. You can print it. You can show it to your attorney. You can show it to your utility company when they're supplying you poor quality power. You can show it to your electrician to help him diagnose what's going on there. So it's a very useful and very powerful piece of equipment that will enable you to diagnose the electromagnetic condition in your home or in your workplace. So between that and the high-frequency meter, you can measure the high and low frequencies. This is all of the electromagnetic fields having to do with the power and the communication signal in our world. In addition, as you mentioned, there's a device called a Stetzer meter. This is a highly specialized meter that you plug into the outlet. This is not measuring the radiation broadcast in the air, but rather you plug it into the outlets, and it's telling you how much high-frequency signal has gotten into the wiring of your home. You mentioned at the beginning of the piece that one poor fellow had radiation coming through the ground, through railroad tracks, and finding its way into his home. It can come from a variety of different sources. can come from sources inside your home, including fluorescent and halogen lights, dimmer switches, AC transformers, those sort of things. But it can also be coming into your home from your neighbor's plasma TV or your neighbor's smart meter or other sources that inject this signal into the wiring, and then it travels throughout the wiring until it finds its way to ground. And that can easily pass through the wiring in your house on its way there.
Yeah.
By the way, we measure it in the wiring, but we're concerned because it does leak out or radiate out from the wiring, and then it affects the people, the plants, the animals in its vicinity. Right. So it's just easy to measure it in the wiring. You can measure it in the air. We have devices, if you want to, you can measure it in the air, and we'll be happy to help you do that. But it's much easier and much more direct to measure it in the wiring.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to give a kind of a mathematical formula for what I call it, what I call synergistic toxicity. So we're going to call it sin sub T equals this is a integral calculation is the combination of the summation of the gene polymorphisms, the previous heavy metals and other volatile chemicals in the person, the stress and load, which is everything, emotional stress, biochemical stress, toxic stress. If they're eating, say, meat that has a high amount of omega-6 fatty acids because it's not fed grass and it's got mineral deficiencies and the animal's been slaughtered in a non-very good way and it's living in a facility that stresses the heck out of the animal, that flesh is going to be more stressful. And then you add to the final part of the equation these other factors like I call the Fukushima factor. But one of the ones that's really not focused on enough is this giant factor called the electromagnetic stress factor, what's called a scalar radiation factor. And basically, toxicity is frequency. And it can be transmitted three ways. It can be an electrical field, a magnetic field, and it can be a what I call a scalar field, which is kind of like... do you want to explain the difference there? Because people need to understand that the scalar physics can be infrasound. It can be all kinds of things, but frequency is information, and when you send the wrong information to the cells and tissues, it does something bad. Emil, your comment?
Yeah, it certainly does, and it comes at us in many different forms from many different directions. And for those of us who aren't taking it into account in terms of what we're doing to protect our health, promote the health and well-being of our families, are at peril.
Exactly.
It's not that hard to do. There is a couple of things you need to...
Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. And we got Fareed talking about Cardivite. The approach that I like to test people, and I call it the red light, green light, is not only an intuitive knowledge, but you got to know that if you're taking Cardivite to protect your heart, your blood vessels, also your brain circulation, your kidney function, your detoxification capacity, it's what I call a foundational nutraceutical. A lot of people don't realize that if you're looking at, say, something like your blood pressure or your muscle cramps or a marker, something, either a clinical thing you can monitor or blood pressure, you might need to take a higher dosage for a while. I've had people where we've had to tell them, you don't just take like one capsule 3 times a day for the average sized person. Some people might need 2-3 times a day, or equivalent to 6 pills a day. Because I want to be super detoxified, I take 4 capsules twice a day, because I like twice a day dosing. And that's a lot. And of course, I take that with my Supernox and my other nutraceuticals. I plow through a lot of supplements in the morning, along with my super drink. And, let's go through the Vitexin, which is present in Cawthorn. I went through all the latest literature. I get all the fancy what I call wellness supplement letters from, the Blaylock Wellness Letter and Sherry Rogers. And I go through Google Scholar, GreenMed Info. I get all the information for all our academies, Academy of Environmental Medicine, Anti-Aging Medicine. Listen to all the research from all the doctors. But you have to have, number one, the best base supplement. And then you have to weigh a monitoring whether or not it's going clinically. Is it working for you? Does it make you not have cramps? Is it making you feel like your brain's working better? Do you find that you're recovering faster from sporting events or other activities? Or are you using biochemical monitors to monitor how fast you're recovering and healing? So let's say you're detoxifying. Do you measure heavy metals and toxic chemicals in your urine? or blood or whatever, try to see if you're detoxing. Cardivite's really important. Let's go through some of the components, because there's what we call Me Too products out there, like, Extendivite, Heart and Body, Strauss Heart Drops. These are Me Too products that are knockoffs. They don't have the original formula. They don't have the intricacy of testing every batch with high-pressure chromatography. They don't have the power of using the right components of the right plants from the right species from the right country. And that's a really big deal. Let's go through each of the components, because one of the first ones, and I tell you one of the more important, is hawthorn. But what part of the hawthorn plant is it coming from, and what species and what country is it originating, and how are you testing the batches so that every single batch has the same marker molecules present in it? I mean, that's pretty scientifically valid and logical, which I think is really good. I mean, it's, So let's talk about that for a second, and we'll go through each of the components.
Yeah, so let's start with the hawthorn, and you mentioned, what part of the plant and where does it come from, and all of these things, which are very important considerations. Now, a lot of people think, automatically think when we're saying hawthorn that we're referring to the berry, and berry is not actually the part of the plant that we use in Cardivite, and there's very good reasons for that. So the part of the plant we use are the leaves and the flowers, and so the extract, which is the vitexin, which is the active marker compound, that's measured in the leaves and the flowers. And why is that important? Well, it's important because all of the studies and the research that have been done on hawthorn show that it's that part of the plant that is most effective for improving cardiac function. And so the vitexin, which is the sort of the indicator of the overall quality of a plant, it's present at a higher level in the leaves and flowers. And so in this particular case, that's what we use. The other consideration is that the hawthorn that we use is actually grown in Europe. And that's a consideration because a lot of, like anything else today, a lot of medicinal herbs nowadays come from China, grown and processed in China. And the Chinese hawthorn is actually a different species of plant. It's a slightly different genus. So, again, it comes down to what has been studied, what is published in the pharmacopoeias, and it's the European hawthorn with using leaves and flowers, and that's what we use in Cardivite.
Exactly, yeah. It makes a huge difference when you use the right strain and then the right part of the plant, and actually it compares also with the actual research literature. It's a big deal. Let's go through the other components, too. So people should understand that when this form is put together by your dad, Sam Ibrahim, he was trained in Germany in pharmacognosy, which, by the way, is the most advanced country in the world for pharmaceutical and we call pharmacognosy, which is the science of pharmaceuticals. It's more advanced, by the way, than Asian countries like China, or you'd assume it would be China or Japan. It's not. It's Germany. And the Germans are very systematic about how they approach science, which is why Second World War science in Germany was 50 years ahead of Western science, which is why all of our space program, all of our research in genetic engineering, all of our other things, all really came out of Germany. I mean, people don't understand that. They were decades ahead of us. It wasn't for...
Yeah, and they never lost their commitment to herbal medicine. And people have this perception of Germans as being, pharmaceutical, and that's just not true.
No. So, 55% of the scripts I've heard, this is a recent statement a few years ago, 55% of the so-called prescriptions given by German doctors and Austrian doctors is nutraceutical medicine. It's not. Yeah, and they do a thing like a capillary Blanche test. You count how fast your capillaries return, and they'll look in your eyes and check your pulse wave to see what your carotid notch is, in your pulse wave, and they'll check your blood pressure. Because they get more than just the idea of what your pressure is. They want to know what your perfusion's like of your small vessels. And then if they check, let's say, a high-speed CT scan, which, it gives you a little bit of radiation, but it tells you your calcium score, it's more sensitive than actually doing, and I tell people, for God's sake, don't do a Lexi scan, which is this radiation test the doctors might order on you. You come up to 500 chest x-rays, which is going to damn well guarantee you cancer. If you need to do a test, do a stress test, but I like the high-speed CT. And high-speed CT scan will tell you if you've got a calcium score, if you've got a family history of problems. You can reverse that with Cardivite, with full vitamin K2, with our other nutraceuticals and fatty acids. You can reverse that calcium score, which is basically saying you have plaque. So Cardivite's important so you don't get plaque in the first place, because it's oxidized fatty acids, which the Cardivite will help stop forming. It stabilizes your blood vessel walls. It helps your body get the oxygen and nutrients into all the tissues of every organ in your body, including your brain and liver. And it helps you get the heavy metals and the toxic chemicals like bisphenol A and heavy metals out of the body, which is a complex process that requires, genetic stimulation, methylation, for example, of mercury. So you get methyl mercury and the body puts it in the bile. That's why the Cardivite is not just for your blood vessels and for your capillaries. It's a tonic for life, like Sam says. It's actually going to reverse a lot of the processes we call aging, which really aren't. It's almost like biochemical hoarding. Have you ever gone into a house where someone's hoarded and they've literally kept every old magazine and stale bananas and food that rotted 2 years ago? Well, that's what's like inside the cells of most people. They eat garbage food, they don't exercise, they take drugs given by their doctor to chase every symptom they have, and then they wonder why they have biochemical hoarding in their house, which is their body, looks like something what I call flip or flop disaster, where somebody comes in to flip the house and they say, oh my gosh, there's bugs or cockroaches and rats everywhere. There's stale food on the ground. There's old magazines from 5 years ago that they should have thrown or burnt. And that's what it's like inside people's cells. Well, if you take Cardivite, you got the dumpster guys that come in. They clean all the garbage out of your home. The Cardivite starts to kind of perfuse or allow healthy people that have got good attitudes to get in the home. People can actually start getting room enough to actually get maybe a treadmill, start exercising with a vibrational platform. You actually are allowed to have airflow through the home, so you got fresh air in the home. So it's analogous to the body. When you start taking Cardivite, it's like doing that. It's like cleaning the home of a hoarder. And you have to think of nowadays in our culture, we eat too many calories, empty calories, don't have enough nutrients. We've got heavy metals and everything, toxic chemicals, 10,000, 7 new every day. And then we wonder why, doctor, am I unhealthy? It's because you haven't got enough pills yet. If we just give you more pills, all the symptoms you complained about last week are gone. So you say, Doc, please give me more pills. Now, they don't tell you, if you did an hour of exercise, modulated your diet and cut out the sugar and adjustable and the heavy metals, start taking Cardivite and other supplements, cleaned up your whole lifestyle and drinking clean filtered water, you would need all the pills to forget about all these symptoms. Cardivite, tonic for life. If you want to save your body from biochemical hoarding, get on your Cardivite today. Any comments for Reed?
Oh, you hit it on the nail. And
you like that, hey? The analogy, I've been watching a lot of flip houses. Flip Boston, flip San Diego. Now I'm realizing, let's flip your body. Flip your body and do that with Cardivite. Pretty funny, hey? Let's flip your body and flip it over from going to the slab or the morgue or the box. How's that? Back in a moment with hour number 3, Tim Alexander.